Yo guys, welcome to another faction guide, and this time we take a closer look on the Wood Elves. And I've been planning this for a long time to do a faction guide about one of my favorite races in the complete game. I really love the Wood Elves. They are so beautiful, they are so cool. This is one of my favorite factions over here, and I have really fun to provide you guys a really good and informative faction guide. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this one over here, and I hope this is going to be a very beautiful one with a lot of good stuff over here, very good visual stuff also, not only dry information, because in my opinion are the Wood Elves one of the most beautiful looking races, if not the most beautiful looking race, because their visible connection to nature is very beautiful on the units. They have a beautiful artwork with all these autumn leaves flying around, all these living trees. I really love that, and this is really beautiful in my opinion. Yeah, we are going to start with the strengths and the weaknesses. As always, give me a thumb up, give me a comment if you like what you see. And yeah, as I said, strengths and weaknesses first, after that the complete army roster, then competitive builds, and then we do a summary. Enjoy this stuff over here, and let's start. So first of all, I think it is really important to clarify one thing in the beginning. There are two major possibilities to play the Wood Elves in a competitive sense. First of all, in a normal way with our infantry foundation, infantry base and stuff like that. The second option is you play it with a missile infantry, missile cavalry base. So with a lot of kite units, or the most units you are going to have on the battlefield are kite units. If you would like to play in this style, this is not your faction guide over here, because I'm doing a faction guide to play the Wood Elves in a normal sense. And this is very important, because this is the major difference in gameplay in all the things I'm going to say in this faction guide. And this is very important, because this is, as I said, a major difference. I'm not going into kite builds or stuff like that. All I'm going to say in this faction guide refers to a balanced build gameplay, you can say. So let's start with the strengths over here. And first of all, very significant is that the Wood Elves have, of course, a high damage output when it comes to their ranged units. They have a really good selection out of different ranged units, missile infantry units, missile cavalry units. And this is, of course, a really important fact. The missile infantry has a really high damage output, especially with the Starfire Shaft Glade Guards, for example, but also the kite units are probably the best kite units in a complete game from the missile cavalry. And this is, of course, very strong. You can do a lot of arrest damage during the game, and it's a very important fact. In my opinion, a very important characteristic are also the mighty tree man. Not only the tree man itself, we have Durtu, we have the tree man, we have the tree kin. So we have very stable, very strong units. Of course, these guys are all large entities, very dangerous to play them against artillery and stuff like that, of course. But besides from that, we have very strong, mighty monsters, you can say. Very good in fighting enemy cavalry and stuff like that. Of course, not anti-large cavalry, but against all infantry units. But also, for example, Durtu is able to fight other large entities, what is also quite good. So I really like the strength of the tree man, if it is the tree man, Asian tree man, or if it is Durtu, for example, or the tree kin. So there is also another really major superior advantage over here, that nearly all Wood Elf units are immune to psychology, and this is very important, and this is very strong. So nothing more to say about this mighty characteristic over here. So we have a faction with a lot of ambush power, kite power, you can say. You can deploy several entities or several units in a vanguard position, and the Way Stalkers, for example, have also Stalk. They have a lot of shooting power, as I said, a lot of good kite units, missile cavalry and stuff like that, very outstanding. But also we have good monsters available, and this is a quite good combination. But even though I haven't found other significant outstanding points over here, so I would say that's it for the pros. So let's talk about the cons over here. So first of all, I would say we don't have many lords available on the roster, and we have also not so much competitive lords available. So I would say we have just 2 or maybe 3 competitive options over here. One of them is Durthu, Orion, and one of the Glade Lords on a dragon. So on foot, the Glade Lord is in my opinion not competitive, but on a dragon this option is good. So we have 2 or 3 options over here. That is not really much, but it's okay. So we have also not one single melee combat hero, so there's no melee combat hero available. In some cases it's quite good to have a hero in the front line fighting in enemy ranks, or to snipe out, to kill, focus out enemy other heroes, lords and stuff. This is not possible. Of course we have a missile infantry, missile ranged hero available, but no melee combat hero. So the next point is also worth to be mentioned. We have just 3 magical laws available. The Law of Shadows, the Law of Beasts, and the Law of Life. I would say they are good laws. The Law of Beasts and the Law of Life and the Law of Shadows are all 3 quite good laws. But even though it's quite limited, we don't have access to the Law of Death. I mean, of course not. This is not fitting in the Wood Elf lore. But even though, it's worth to be mentioned that the access is quite limited over here. Also, a really important point is, in my opinion, that the Wood Elves don't have the best cavalry. Don't get me wrong, the White Riders are not a bad cav unit, but they are not really a cav unit to compete against other cavalry units. So they are more designed to fight mid-range or low-tier, more low-tier infantry units, to do some harass damage, to kill enemy missile infantry units, kill artillery groups and stuff like that. They are not really designed to fight enemy cavalry unit except for low-tier cavalry. So, and there's nothing more, so we have a bit a problem, because we don't have any shock cavalry available. There's just the melee combat cavalry, because also the White Riders don't causing any AP damage, or amount of AP damage is very low. So we don't have any unit to compete against heavy other cav targets and stuff like that, and this is, in my opinion, a disadvantage. A other disadvantage is that the Wood Elves don't have any artillery, so there is no artillery available whatsoever. We have just the missile infantry and missile cavalry, so missile range stuff is available, but no artillery, and this can count as a disadvantage, of course. Also, a quite big deal over here on the side of the disadvantages is that the Wood Elf units are typically not so heavily armored, or very low on armor, you can say. We have a very low amount of armor on the most units, except for all the trees. So the Treekin, Treeman, Durtu and all that stuff, everything out of wood is quite good armored, but the other stuff is very, very low on armor, and this is of course a big disadvantage. We have no ethereal units whatsoever, so we have just units with a very low amount of armor in average, and this is of course a big disadvantage over here. Also worth to be mentioned is that we have problems on some units, or on the tree units, you can say. Everything out of wood has some problems with fire. So we have a weakness to fire on all treemen, treekin, and all that stuff. Also the dryads, for example. And we have over here a weakness to fire of 25%. In some cases, it's a quite significant point. For example, if you play against Bretonia and he brings some peasant bowmen with fire arrows, this is causing a lot of trouble, a lot of damage. So last but not least, we have a quite small unit roster, you can say, overall. So we don't have much units available on the different arms of service. So the amount of units is quite low. We have not much cavalry, we have not much monsters, we have not much heroes, we have not much lords. But the infantry, the missile infantry and the missile cavalry is quite well stocked, but also okay. So overall we have not much units available, and this is always bad, as I mentioned it many times, because that limits naturally and usually the amount of different tactics that are able to be played on the battlefield. But with the Wood Elves it is a bit different. The Wood Elves, even if they have a quite limited amount of different units, they are still able to play a very good amount of different competitive tactics, and this is very good. Because we have quite good arms of service with the infantry, and missile cavalry. Even if other arms with the lords, heroes and cavalry have a quite limited amount of units available. So many disadvantages and just 2 advantages, but this is deceptive. I mean, we have many points on the con side, but even though the pros are really strong also, so it's not that the Wood Elves are a bad race, but I will explain more in later in this faction guide over here. So let's continue with the lords. So let's start with Papa Durtu, and he is a mighty lord. In my opinion, one of the strongest lords of the complete game, because he's a mighty melee expert monster, and a spellcaster. And we have a very good weapon strength of 470. This is a lot of stuff. Very good for a lord also. 470 is a high amount of weapon strength, and the amount of AP damage is 330, also really good. The melee attack with 65 is really superior. This is in one league with Tyrion and stuff like that, so we have a huge amount of melee attack, and in addition he's causing magical attacks. The melee defense of 48 is good. The amount of armor with 100, he's very heavily armored, is very good. And then we have access to the Lore of Beasts. So we have the complete Lore of Beasts available. The most popular spell is of course Flock of Doom. So for 6 winds of magic you can cast this with a cooldown of 30 seconds, all over the game on enemy infantry or unit groups, and causing a quite good amount of damage. You are able to overcast it, and that will extend the effect duration and the cast range, so the damage output is the same. But it's very cheap, Flock of Doom, and for this case very popular. But you can also use Transformation of Cadon to cast a Manticore. I never do this, but it's also possible. So you have the complete Lore of the Beasts. He has 2 quite unique abilities. One of them is Word of Dave. That will also cause, you can say it's quite similar to Flock of Doom, in a range a quite good amount of damage to enemy units. You can only use this ability twice in the complete game with a cooldown of 100 seconds. And we have Lamentation of Despair. Durtu is going to shoot some stuff out of his chest, you can say, and with this you can damage a single entity quite a lot. So Durtu is not the fastest lord. The speed is very slow with 35. This is really not much, so he's very slow. and we have at least this ability Lamentation of Despair to do at least a little bit of range damage, because as I said, he's not the fastest, and if you want to chase our enemy lord and stuff like that, this spell is quite good. We have also the Amber Spear for that from the Law of the Beast, is also a ranged attack, you can say, can also enable this, even if Lamentation of Despair is preferable. With Lamentation of Despair, Flock of Doom and Sword of Dave enabled, in my opinion, the most competitive combination. The price is about 2,300 credits, but it's of course quite a lot of stuff, but he's worth every penny. In my opinion, the best lord on the roster. Of course, it depends again on your gameplay. If you want to do some kite gameplay and stuff like that, Dutu is of course not your lord, but in other cases, Dutu is your lord. Of course, the only disadvantage is he's a big monster. He's very vulnerable to enemy artillery fire, handgunners and stuff like that. But the other side is he's a huge monster and has a huge mass. He's very able to fight other monsters, even if he has no anti-large bonus whatsoever. He's performing very well against other monsters, and he's performing superior also in enemy infantry ranks. So this is the positive side, and the downside is of course he's huge and vulnerable to artillery fire. He has a physical resistance of 20% and a missile resistance of 15%. The missile resistance is good, but it's not that much, so enemy warp lightning cannons and stuff like that will hit you hard. Also, he has a weakness to fire of 25%, like other wooden units, you can say. And as I in the beginning already said, other units that are able to cause fire damage will hit him quite hard. For example, peasant bowmen with fire arrows, and this is of course a disadvantage. In summary, you can say Dutu is one of my favorite lords in the complete game. He's slow, he's big, but he's causing a tremendous amount of damage. He's also good to fight other large entities, and in my opinion, the best lord on the roster. So let's continue with the Glade Lord, and this is the male version, so there are two Glade Lords. And I started the series with Dutu, with the most expensive lord, and this Glade Lord over here is the cheapest option on the roster. He's declared as a hybrid weapon specialist, but he is by far better with his missiles, so he's also able to fight in melee combat. But if we take a look on the weapon strength of 360, that is very low for a lord, and also the amount of AP damage is just 100, is also quite low. Melee attack 65, melee defense of 60 is good, but the amount of armor is just 50, so he's much better with his missiles. So the missile damage is 390, what is very good, and the amount of AP missile damage of 84 is also good. So the damage output with his missiles is much better. He causing magical attacks with his missiles, also quite interesting. And he has a missile resistance for himself by 15%. He has some mediocre abilities, low tier abilities, Foe-Seeker, Deadly Onslaught, nothing special, but he has a quite unique item, Banner of the Hunter King, that will increase his melee attack by 5 and a charge bonus of 8%, but it's not preferable to use this because, as I said, he's not really good in melee combat, so you spend your money on any spells or abilities that will increase the melee stats over here. And then he has a unique item, Helm of Discord, that will reduce the melee defense and melee attack of your opponent in a range of 40 meters, the melee defense by 27 and the melee attack by 26, but it's also not really, in my opinion, you can disable everything. But when it comes to the mounts, we have 3 different options: Elven Steed, a Giant Eagle and a Forest Dragon. In my opinion, all 3 mounts are quite decent solution, whether for the male Glade Lord or the female Glade Lord, both have the same mounts available. The Great Eagle is probably the most uncommon version, but it is still in some cases quite decent. A Steed is quite good because you have a good amount of speed and you are a very fast target then. Or of course the Forest Dragon costs extra charge is just 1250 credits, what is very good, and you have a lot of mobility. He can shoot on the Forest Dragon, he can shoot while sitting on the Forest Dragon, let me say it like this. He causing also poison attacks, but just on the Forest Dragon, so also quite interesting side note. He causing poison attacks with his melee attack, but just if he sits on the Forest Dragon, and then he causing also magical attacks with his melee combat. On a Forest Dragon whatsoever, he has a physical resistance of 20%, so causing fear then and terror and all that stuff. But also, as I said, a steed is a quite decent solution, and in some cases also a great eagle. It depends, but never bring him on foot. I would always pick a mount at least. But besides from that, nothing more to say about the Glade Lord. Let's continue. So let's come to the Glade Lord lady, and everything over here is the same except for the abilities. And if we take her, we can use different abilities. For example, the Eye of Corners, that will increase the missile damage by 10% constantly, what is quite a huge effect. And the Prey of Warhammer, that will hold tight other entities, other enemies. They cannot move, and the missile resistance will drop by 22%. So you will activate this ability on, for example, one large target or enemy monster. He will hold tight, and then also you can shoot on him, and the missile resistance is reduced by 22%. That will cause a lot of damage. Then we have our Arrow of Corners, that will shoot a magic arrow, you can say, that causes a huge amount of armor piercing damage. We have some 2 items, Banner of the Eternal Queen, that will increase the leadership by 4 and the damage resistance by 6%. And then we have just a potion of speed. But the rest is completely the same. We have the same stats, the same mounts available. And in the Glade Lord lady is the most used lord, I would say, on the roster, cause the abilities, the price is just 100 more for the ground elementary price regarding the male Glade Lord, but she has much better abilities. So the Glade Lord lady is on a steed, probably the most recently used lord in competitive Wood Elf gaming, I would say. So let's talk about Orion, and Orion is a quite unique lord, I would say. He's a small entity when it comes to his model, but he counts as a large entity. So of course he's huge if you compare him to normal infantry units, but overall he's not a huge target. He counts as a hybrid weapon specialist, so he's causing a quite huge amount of missile damage with 400, what is quite impressive, and the amount of AP missile damage is 250. I mean this is incredibly high. The range whatsoever is 140, so he can throw his spears for a quite long distance. But also we have a huge weapon strength. So we have a weapon strength of 490, and this is really a lot of stuff. The amount of AP damage is 310, also very good, and we have a bonus versus large of 15 in addition. So very good stats over here. Therefore we have a quite low melee defense of 30. This is not really good. But the melee attack with 65 is quite good. But again, the amount of armor is very, very low. So we have just 30. This is not really much. He has a missile resistance of 20%. He causing fear and terror, what is quite interesting. So he is a monster, you can say. Because quite interesting for a lord to cause, non-monster lord to cause fear and terror. So he counts as a monster, you can say. And he has also quite good abilities. We have Hounds of Orion. It has not that huge impact. Some hounds jumping around and causing some damage. Cooldown of 90 seconds. You can use that ability 3 times. Then we have Hawk's Talon. This is quite good, so causing a good amount of damage. This ability over here also only 3 times available. Foe Seeker, nothing special, but we have also some good items. Horn of the Wild Hunt, that will increase the speed by 24%, and the charge putter for 36%. But I would leave this out. It has not a huge impact, and the costs are really high with 225 credits. And we have a item Clock of Isha that will replenish the hit points and will give plus 44% damage resistance. But also here I would leave this out. Too expensive, not a massive impact. But overall we have a massive, very strong fighter. This Lord is unbreakable. He will never out off. Don't get terrified. He's then immune to psychology. Very interesting facts over here. And he causing a huge amount of damage with his spear, with his missile damage, his ranged weapon, but also in melee combat. But be aware, in melee combat he will also get a lot of damage because he has not so much armor and the melee defense is very low, and this combination is very bad. So he will get in a very short period of time a lot of damage, even if he also cause a lot of damage. But overall is Orion a quite competitive pick, a very competitive pick. The price with some spells enabled is about 1,900 credits. This is quite decent, and yeah, I can recommend to bring Orion to the battlefield. This is really a good lord over here. So last but not least, let's talk about the Ancient Treeman. And if we compare the stats of Papa Duo 2 to the stats of the Ancient Treeman, we can clearly see that we have over here a reduced weapon strength, a reduced melee attack, and a lesser charge bonus. And quite a lot of that. So we have then a weapon strength of overall 400, and this is not so good anymore. The amount of AP damage is 280, still good, but we have a quite low melee attack, or much lesser melee attack of 37. This is not anything special anymore. This is okay, or quite low. I wouldn't say it's by far not good. So he's not. The stats are just reduced regarding to Durtu stats, but he is able to cast spells from the Law of Life. For example, we have Awakening of the Wood, what does meanwhile a quite good amount of damage to enemy units and will reduce them, the speed of them. Then we have Earthblood to heal enemy units. We have Flesh to Stone that will increase the amount of armor by 60, and we have Dwellers Below, for example, that will cause a quite huge amount of damage to enemy units within the circle or within the range. But besides from that, nothing special. Some mediocre abilities also, not any special stuff over here. So this is the reason why the Ancient Treeman is probably the most uncompetitive lord, you can say. In most cases Durtu is always preferable, because Durtu has much better stats, is also able to cast good spells from the Law of Beasts, and so there is, even if the price is 500 less of the Ancient Treeman than the price of Durtu, Durtu is in all cases preferable. And even if you don't pick Durtu, Orion is also much more competitive. So the Ancient Treeman, just for fun purposes. So as I said in the beginning about the Lord roster, it is quite manageable. So we have just a few lords available, but that doesn't mean that these lords are not good. So we have quite competitive ones with Durtu, Orion, and a Glade Lord on a Forest Dragon. But as I said, the selection is not really huge. So let's talk about the heroes, and let's begin with the Waystalker. And the Waystalker is a hybrid weapon specialist, but also here much more important is the missile damage. We have an amount of nearly 390. The armor piercing missile damage is 84, so quite similar to the Glade Lord. The weapon strength is 325, so nothing special, but still okay for a hybrid hero. The melee attack 55, melee defense 45, but the amount of armor is 40, so he's not very heavily armored. He's a forest stalker, That means he gains a bonus in melee combat, melee defense and accuracy while fighting within the forest. You can deploy him in the vanguard position. He's declared as a duelist, so you can fight enemy lords and heroes, but I wouldn't really say he's an expert in that. So let's take a look on the abilities. We have also the Eye of Kronos over here, quite interesting. 10% missile damage will increase constantly if you activate this. I can recommend always to enable this. The Eye of Kronos is really important. Arrow of Kronos also, yeah, huge AP damage of this magical arrow. And yeah, besides from that, nothing special. The price is with the two abilities enabled 942, what is okay. He has a missile resistance of 15%, has an encourager ability, so he will pump up the leadership of other units nearby. And yeah, besides from that, he is able to fire whilst moving, also interesting. And he remains hidden while firing. He has the snipe ability, so you can shoot and you always stay hidden, also quite interesting. And he has, of course, stalk. The best way to use him is to hide him anywhere in the woods and stuff like that. As I already said, he can fire and he can stay hidden, so you can constantly shoot on one target, an enemy hero, monster, all that stuff, and he will cause a good amount of damage during the fight, and your enemy doesn't or is not able to spot your hero over here. So for this purpose, this is quite good. So let's come to the Spellsinger ladies, and these, yeah, 3 ladies. There are 3 different ladies available, one with the Law of Shadows, one with the Law of Life, and one with the Law of Beasts. So for example, if you pick a Glade Lord or Orion, you don't have access to magic with your Lord, then it is always quite good to bring additional Spellsinger to the battlefield. You can sit these ladies on an Elven Steed, a Unicorn, or a Giant Eagle. But overall they are pure spellcaster, so they are not good in melee combat. Of course, the stats will increase, for example, if you sit them on a Giant Eagle, but the price will also increase a lot. So in most cases, use them just for casting spells, not for melee combat. Even if they are definitely able on a Unicorn or Elven Steed or a Great Eagle to chase away some routing units, attack some low-tier infantry or missile infantry units. For this purposes, with increased melee stats on a mount, they are really able to do this. But besides from that, nothing more to say. If you need an additional caster, this is your pick. And we have a very special spellcaster also available, the Branch Wrath. This thing over here, this tree, this dryad, is using a combination out of the Law of Life and the Law of Shadows. We have the Pendulum, we have Earthblood, for example, Awakening of the Wood. The price is just a little bit higher than on the Spellsingers. Just the elementary price is just 100 more. But we have the Branch Wrath is designed also to fight in melee combat. So we have a weapon strength of 330, what is quite good for a spellcaster hero. And we have an amount of AP damage of 100, that is okay. The melee defense is 35, the melee attack 47, what is quite good for a hero. And she causing magical attacks. The amount of armor is 60, what is also not bad. Quite heavily armored. You can deploy them in the vanguard position, but this is probably not so interesting. She has a physical resistance of 20%, a missile resistance of 15%. She causing fear, but she has also a weakness to fire of 25%. But besides from that, the Branch Wrath is a quite decent pick because you have a combination out of 2 good magical laws. And you have also a unit which is able to fight in enemy infantry ranks or against already wounded other heroes or lords and stuff like that. For this case, the Branch Wrath is quite good because the extra charge is not really much. So let's continue with the infantry, and let's start with the Eternal Guard. Probably one of the most cost efficient, most effective low tier infantry units in the complete game. They're really dangerous to, they're really steady and dangerous to large targets. They have a weapon strength of 24 and in addition a bonus versus large of 15. And they have an amount of armor piercing damage of 20, so superior stats for a unit for 475 credits. The melee defense is 36, also really good. That makes them so steady. The melee attack is there for 26. It's not the highest, but still okay for that price. But we have a quite low armor of 40. But anyway, this unit over here, nothing more to say. The base foundation unit of the Wood Elves in the infantry roster, and a very, very cost efficient, very effective unit, and performing superior against large targets, but also against other infantry units. Very, very steady. It's quite a good combination to use them to protect your missile infantry units, especially against cavalry. For this purpose, these guys are really perfect, but as I said, also in the front line. But I would prefer in the front line the shielded version, especially if you suspect a lot of missile infantry units on your opponent's side. So let's talk about the Dryads, and this is a low tier damage dealer unit. They are able to get deployed in a vanguard position, so for special tactics and stuff. These trees, ladies, whatever, have a quite good amount of weapon strength. For that price we have a weapon strength of 34, therefore a very, very low amount of AP damage of 5, so they are just good against non-armored targets, you can say. The melee defense is typically low for damage dealer units, therefore we have a good melee attack of 33 for that price, and they causing melee attack, magical attacks, sorry. The amount of armor is 60, what is quite good for that price. They have a physical resistance of 20%, unfortunately also the fire weakness, but they're causing fear, and they are immune to psychology, very important, so they will never rout off or get terrified. They will rout off, but they don't get terrified from enemy large monsters nearby, and this is also a very important characteristic. This unit over here is very cost efficient, and as I said, if you're facing up a lot of low tier units from the Greenskins, Beastmen or maybe Skaven, Dryads really pay off. So there's also a shielded version of the Eternal Guards available, and this is in my opinion the more common version, because the extra charge is not so much. We have a price of 550 credits, and you get a more melee defense, not less melee attack, so the melee attack is the same, and a little bit less charge bonus, but therefore you have a silver shield, was quite interesting, and you have a more steady unit overall. And as I said, for a little bit more, the extra charge is not so much, so in my opinion, in the most cases, the Eternal Guards with shield preferable to the normal Eternal Guards. In some cases, if you are going to face up against a lot of large entities without any or not so many other infantry units or missile infantry units, then you can also pick the normal version without shield, because the shielded version is especially very good when you're facing up a lot of against a lot of missile infantry units or other infantry units in general. For melee combat, the shield is very good, but against a huge amount of monsters, you can also pick the version without shield and spend your money elsewhere then. So there's also a Regiment of Renown version available, the Winterheart Guards. And this is a very interesting unit, and in my opinion a very competitive unit. We have extra charge of 300 credits, but it's quite a lot, but we get also a lot. This unit is, in my opinion, or is unbreakable, so we have a leadership of 100. They will never rout off. The melee attack is increased by 6 and the melee defense by 14, and by 14 is a lot of stuff over here. The rest is quite the same. We have a expert charge defense. That means they have charge defense against all unit, and they have an encourage ability, what is quite nice, that will buff enemy units near ally units nearby, and this is of course also a big effect, like the aspiring champion on the Chaos Warriors. But even though the increased stats are good enough, the encourage ability and the expert charge defense is quite nice, but we have a melee defense of 58 overall, and this is huge. So in most cases, the Winterheart Guards are really a good pick in nearly every matchup, because they are so steady and your opponent has a lot of problems to kill them, especially with large entities, of course, but also with mid-range and low-tier infantry. It is quite difficult because, as I said, the melee defense is huge and they are unbreakable. So they're very, very steady, have also a silver shield. And yeah, nothing more to say about these guys. I can recommend to bring them to the battlefield. Very important is also to mention over here that these guys are immune to psychology because of their unbreakable ability. They have 100 leadership, so they're also immune to psychology. Very, very important. So let's talk about the War Dancers, and these ladies are a mid-range damage dealer unit, and you can say a better version than the Dryads. Of course, the Dryads have a little bit better more hit points, and you can say that War Dancers have nearly no armor. They have just the amount of 15, what is quite low, but besides from that, all stats are increased regarding the Dryad. So we have a better melee attack of 44 with overall 44, a melee defense of 34, a weapon strength of 36, and they are anti-infantry, and they have a real anti-infantry bonus of 8, so superior stats all over the place. They have a physical resistance of 20%, what is quite interesting, and they are immune to psychology. So a really good damage dealer unit, especially of course to slice and dice non-armored or very low targets with a very low amount of armor, because as I said, the amount of AP damage is not really high with 8. They are typical damage dealer unit with a very good damage output, a very good melee attack. And yeah, nothing more to say about these ladies. They are really cost efficient unit, and if you need a mid-range damage dealer unit with some power, these ladies are really good for that. Worth to be mentioned is that we have a unique ability called the Shadow's Coil that will increase the melee defense by 27% and decrease the melee attack by 26%. So let's talk about the War Dancers with Azurai Spear. And they are of course anti-large. They have an anti-large bonus of 23, what is quite good. And also the amount of AP damage is not bad. So we have an amount of 20, what is... they are not declared as a unit that causing a huge amount of AP damage, but 20 is in fact quite okay. They are immune to psychology also. They have also physical resistance again of 20%. They have a charge defense against large, of course. But besides from that, nothing special. They have a huge melee defense of 49, what is really good. They are performing superior against cavalry or large entities. The weapon strength is a little bit reduced regarding the War Dancers, and also of course the melee attack, but they are a defense unit. And I would probably say they are going in a high tier range if it comes to the price. We have a price of 950 credits. So they are quite elite, I would say. They are... It's payable, 950 credits, but you can also bring, of course, Eternal Guards to the battlefield. They are also anti-large, so it depends. If you compare the stats of Eternal Guards with shields to the stats of Azurai Spears, we can clearly see that nearly all stats are much higher on this, or not much higher, but higher on the side of the Azurai Spears, except for the hit points, the amount of armor, and the leadership. But the rest is increased, so the damage output is higher, the melee defense is higher, the weapon strength is higher, and of course also the amount of AP damage. So if you need a elite unit, elite anti-large unit, and where Eternal Guards are probably not enough, you can pick War Dancers with Azurai Spears over here. So worth to be mentioned is that we have quite a unique ability called Woven Mist that will increase the missile resistance by or with 44% and decrease therefore the melee defense by 27 for 30 seconds. So there's also a regiment of renown available, the Leox Tricksters, and these ladies have increased stats regarding the normal war dancers. Of course, we have a higher leadership plus 10, higher melee attack plus 6, and a much higher melee defense plus 15. Then we have an overall melee defense of 64, and this is quite a lot. This is in one league with the Iron Breakers, for example. This is a lot of stuff. But even though the extra charge for the Leox Tricksters is 400 credits, and this is incredible high, and so I say that these ladies are not worth the price, because the extra charge is a lot. I mean, 1,350 credits is a lot of stuff. Even with that melee defense, it is too much. But we have, of course, worth to be mentioned is that we have a physical resistance of 20%. Also, the charge defense against large is there. They are immune to psychology, and they have some abilities. For example, Frenzy, that will increase the weapon damage by 12%, the charge bonus by 8%, the melee attack by 8 constantly. And it is disabled, or it is enabled when the leadership is higher than 50%. Then we have Storm of Blades, plus 26 melee attack, minus 27 melee defense, therefore for 30 seconds. So if you will boost, give your Leox Tricksters a damage boost, then you can activate this for 30 seconds, but be aware the melee defense will decrease. And then last but not least, we have Leox Shroud, that will make them unspottable. They have Stalk and will increase the speed by 24%, but I'm not sure how good is this ability, because it is just with a duration of 38 seconds, and in the most cases your opponent will spot this Leox Tricksters from the beginning on, and so I don't see any useful scenario for this ability over here. So as I said, the price is too high, it's not worth it. So let's come to the elite stuff here on the infantry roster. Let's go to the Wildwood Rangers. This is the AP damage version of the Wood Elf infantry. We have very good stats all over the place. We have a very good melee attack of nearly 48 in fact, very good. We have still a very good melee defense of 38. This is not a shield, they don't have any shield. This is the great weapon version, and for this the melee defense of 38 is quite good. We have a weapon strength of 42, a high damage output, and the amount of AP damage is 32, so very good. The only disadvantage is over here that we have a very low amount of armor for itself, so it's just 40. This is not really much, but they are immune to psychology, and if they are in a forest they get plus 12 bonus versus large and a charge defense versus large. I might remember myself that these guys had in the past, in the first game, a anti-large bonus constantly. They have always a anti-large bonus, and now they have just the anti-large bonus in a forest. But anyway, as I said, the only disadvantage is a little bit the low amount of armor. But they are not in a range with the Hargonef Executioners and the Swordsmasters of Howard and stuff. They are one step under this type of units, or under this league of units. They are not playing in the same league. The price therefore is quite cheap, quite decent. We have just a price of 1,000. This is very cost efficient, and if you need a lot of AP damage against other infantry units, the Wildwood Rangers are really good for that, and are a very cost efficient unit. So there's also a regiment of renown available, the Wardens of Citral. And these Wildwood Rangers have a higher melee defense plus 13. This is a lot of stuff, because we have overall 51. And we have also increased melee attack of 56, and this is very good. Also increased is the leadership, so we have nearly 90 then. This is very good. On the normal Wildwood Rangers the leadership is 80, is also very good, but here we have nearly 90. Very good. We have a silver shield, so these guys are shielded. So very interesting is that they have better melee attack, better melee defense, they have a shield, and so all stats are increased except for the weapon strength. We have a little bit lower weapon strength, minus a 9 regarding the normal Wildwood Rangers, but therefore we have a bonus versus large of 15. Also the amount of AP damage is a little bit decreased, but the bonus versus large is quite interesting. So they are not only good against large entities, also because of their increased melee attack and melee defense, they are also good against infantry units, but the bonus versus large, as I said, is very interesting. Besides from that, they have stalks, so they can move hidden in any terrain. Also immune to psychology, also the Guardian of the Wildwood ability that will trigger a bonus versus large if they fight within a forest. They are able to get deployed in a vanguard position, but it's not so interesting, and of course they have a charge defense against large. So the 250 credits extra charge is really worth the price, and in many cases I would say it's worth to bring them to the battlefield, because 1250 credits for that stats overall is really good. The stats are massive increased, and we have a bonus versus large. Very interesting unit over here. And they are also immune to psychology like the normal Wildwood Rangers. Very interesting, because this is helping these guys to fight especially large entities. This is very helpful for that. So let's come to the missile infantry, and let's start with the Glade Guards, and there are 3 different models available. Let's start with the normal version, the normal Glade Guard version, and we have a quite good amount of missile damage with 23, therefore the amount of AP damage is just 4. This is not really much, but the most important point is probably the missile range. We have a range of 170 on all 3 models, and this is huge, and one of the reasons why these Glade Guard are one of the best missile infantry units of the complete game, because they have a huge missile range and can outrange many other missile infantry units of the game. And this is very important. We have a group of 60 different models. This is also very good. They can fire whilst moving. Of course, in melee combat they are quite useless because of their really low melee attack. We have just 20 and the amount of armor is just 15, but in emergency case it is okay. But of course they are much better with their missile, with their arrows. The price for a group of Glade Guard is 550 credits, so very cost efficient. Then we have the Glade Guards with hackbang tips. These guys have exactly the same stats except for 1 point. These guys causing poison attacks, and that will reduce the amount of armor piercing missile damage by 20%, the speed by 24%, the weapon damage by 20%, the amount of armor piercing damage by 20%, and the missile damage by 20% of your opponent if you hit him with this poison arrows over here. So quite interesting, but besides from that, no changes regarding the normal Glade Guard. The extra charge is 50, and if you spend 50 more, you will get a Glade Guard with Starfire shafts, and in my opinion the most competitive version over here. Even if the missile damage is a little bit reduced, we have a missile damage of 19, so that it is reduced by 4, but we have a good amount of AP damage, therefore, with an amount of AP missile damage of 16, and this is quite good. And in my opinion, it always feels like that these guys causing the most amount of damage, even if the missile damage, the general missile damage, is a little bit reduced. The fact that these guys causing a good amount of AP missile damage is really good, and in my opinion it feels always that these guys cause the most damage against everything. So in my opinion, it's always worth to spend the 650 credits to deploy the Glade Guards with Starfire Shaft. So I barely playing with normal Glade Guards or Glade Guards with hackbang tips. I usually play always with Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts over here. So let's come to a little bit more elite missile infantry units, the Deepwood Scouts. These guys are forest stalkers. They're able to get deployed in a vanguard position. They have a higher missile range, a little bit higher missile range than the Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts, but overall it's the same missile damage like on the normal Great Guard version. We have 23. The amount of AP damage is AP missile damage is very low. We have also just 4, so nothing special. Therefore, as I said, they are also able to fire whilst moving. They are able to get deployed in a vanguard position, and they have stalk, so this unit can move hidden in any terrain. And so for ambushes and harass damage in the beginning, these guys are very good. But overall, is the missile damage not really significant or significant more? And therefore, I barely play with Deepwood Scouts. I would say I never play with Deepwood Scouts, because 700 credits is not much more than the Glade Guards, but you also don't get any big advantage. So in my opinion, pick Glade Guards. The normal Deepwood Scout version is not worth the price, in my opinion. Worth to be mentioned is that the missile range is a little bit increased. We have a range overall of 180, what is quite a lot and quite interesting, but still I would say a normal group of Glade Guard is more efficient in this case. So let's come to the Deepwood Scouts with Swift Shiver shots, and these guys are able to shoot 2 arrows at once, and that means a higher damage output. So we have a damage output overall of 37. This is increased by 14 regarding the normal Deepwood Scouts. The amount of armor piercing missile damage is still the same, what is in my opinion really bad. And also we have a reduced missile range of 45, overall now 135, so not so much anymore. And also you don't have to forget, if these guys will shoot 2 arrows at once, that means we have the same amount of ammunition, but it will drop much faster, of course, because you shoot much more arrows with one volley. And this, so we have some advantages but also some disadvantages. And the extra charge is 150 credits, but still I wouldn't say it's worth the price. Even if they are master ambusher, they're forest stalkers, that means they gain a bonus in melee defense and accuracy while fighting within the forest, for example. And they have stalk and can also be able to get deployed in the vanguard position. But even though 850 credits is in my opinion too much, especially because we have nearly no amount of armor piercing missile damage, and the missile range is really low, so I would never spend the money on these guys over here. Glade Guards are in my opinion still preferable. Quite interesting over here that these guys causing magical attacks with their missiles, but even though, as I said, I would leave them out. So let's come to the Way Watchers, and the Way Watchers are the elite missile infantry unit of the Wood Elves, who have increased missile damage and where they have a huge amount of AP missile damage of 20. The missile damage overall is 29, so very good stats over here. The missile range is nearly 200, we have 190, so the stats are superior when it comes to the range capabilities. We have also quite good weapon strength with 32, a quite good melee attack with 28 for a missile infantry unit, and melee defense of 32. So even the melee combat stats are quite good for a missile infantry unit. Of course, we have still nearly no armor, but also these guys are master ambusher. They can get deployed in a vanguard position. They can fire whilst moving. They have stalk, and they have an ability called Hawkish Precision that is constantly and will increase the armor piercing missile damage by 15%, and this is active if no enemy presence is in the ability range. So quite interesting fact. So we have in most cases more 50% more AP missile damage, so the damage output is gigantic. So if you have 1100 credits left, these guys are definitely worth the price. Even they are elite high tier unit for the missile infantry, and they have of course a high price. But if you need a high damage output, and if you take care of them, they can really pay off. So in some cases they are really worth the price, even if it is really discussable if you in some cases would rather pick 2 groups of Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts. It depends, because 2 groups of Starfire Shaft also have a huge damage output, and you get nearly for 1 group of Weight Watchers 2 groups of these guys, and so in most cases it's discussable. But if we take a look on the stats and the price, they are cost efficient. But you have to decide if you would like to spend so much money on 1 unit, of course. Last but not least, we have the Hawk Eyes of Drakira, and these guys have a increased missile damage by 8. So we have overall 38, what is quite good. The melee stats are increased, so we have melee defense of 44 overall, so it's increased by 12, what is quite a lot now, and melee attack by 34. So they have quite good melee combat stats. Quite interesting fact over here. The weapon strength is still 32, so nothing special, and they're causing nearly no amount of AP damage in melee combat, but it's not necessary. Then we have quite good unique abilities. One is Discourage, so if your opponent gets hit by these guys with the arrows, the leadership will drop by 16. And yeah, they have an ability called Smoke Bomb that will decrease the charge speed by your enemy by 76% and the speed overall by 76%. And this will trigger around these Hawk Eyes of Drakira within a range of 30 meters. So this is for escaping if you are surrounded from enemy units or something like that. You can activate the Smoke Bomb over here to escape, for example. They have also the Hawkish Precision ability. They have Stalk, they have can fire while moving, and they can deploy them in a vanguard position. So, but besides from that, nothing special, nothing more. But we have a price of 1,450 credits. This is 250 credits extra charge regarding the normal Weight Watchers, and this is meanwhile a lot of stuff. So this is nearly 1,500 credits for 1 unit of 1 missile infantry unit. This is very elite, this is very high tier, and this is very expensive. So in most cases I wouldn't say it's worth to bring them, even if the stats are superior, the performance is superior. It is too much money for 1 missile infantry unit, in my opinion. If you would like to have a high tier missile infantry unit with a good performance, take the normal Weight Watchers. I think they are also really worth the price. And besides from that, 2, 3 or 4 groups of Glade Guards or stuff like that are always good. So we have a very good missile infantry overall. I'm not really a fan of the Deepwood Scouts, but besides from that, Weight Watchers are very elite, very good, and the Glade Guards, nothing more to say about these guys. And yeah, really good missile infantry. But yeah, this is one important point on the Wood Elf army roster, of course. So let's come to the cavalry, and we have 3 different cavalry units available. But as I said, the Wood Elves are not cavalry experts. But even though the Wild Riders are a good cavalry unit, they are designed to fight in melee combat. But even though the charge bonus is also very good, we have a charge bonus of 62, what is not bad. But the weapon strength of 42 is also not bad. The amount of AP damage is just 14, but it is okay. The melee defense therefore is very low, we have just 23. The melee attack with 34 is good, but therefore still the amount of armor is just 14. We have a very high speed for a cavalry unit, 85, what is also quite good. They have a physical resistance of 20%, causing fear, also quite interesting. Are able to get deployed in a vanguard position, so also perfect over here to deploy them in a vanguard position in some forest woods, hide them and do some rear charges them, so surprise attack and stuff like that. This is really good for that. and they have the ability Frenzy. As I said, plus 12% weapon damage, plus 8% charge bonus, plus 8 melee attack, and they are immune to psychology. This is constant if the leadership is higher than 50%. So for 1100 credits, this is okay. This is not the most cost efficient unit, but it is quite decent. But as I said, they are really not that good to compete against other elite cavalry units. They are not really designed for that, but with one or two groups they are still able to kill some mid-range or low-tier cavalry units, but they are more designed to fight enemy infantry groups, chase away kite units, chase away warhounds, or doing rear charges in the front line. For this purposes, these guys are really superior, and then they're really good for that. They're really fighting very well against infantry units and stuff like that, even if the missile damage AP the AP damage is not the best. The performance against infantry, low and mid-range cavalry units is quite good, but be aware against high-tier cav and monsters and stuff like that. They're really not designed for fighting like that. So we have also Wild Riders with shields, but nothing special over here. We have an increased melee defense by 6, so we have 29 overall then, so nothing special, and we have a silver shield. So for just 100 credits more, it's always preferable to pick these guys, because they can defend themselves with the shield. They will block 55% of all small arm missile firing, and it is in this case really preferable to spend these 100 credits. So last but not least, we have the Wild Hunters of Kurnes. These guys are the Regiment of Renown version of the Wild Riders with shields. The price overall is very expensive in my opinion. We have a price of 1,500 credits. We have a much higher melee defense of 40. So this is nearly the double of the melee defense of the normal Wild Rider. So very, very interesting, and a really high melee defense for this unit over here. And the melee attack is 41, also increased by 7, and also the leadership is a bit increased. So overall, really good stuff. Over here we have an ability, additional ability called Guardian, that will provide a plus 18% physical resistance to a lord or a hero in a range within 30 meters constantly. Also quite good ability, the same like on the Swords of Chaos from Chaos Warriors. But even though 1,500 credits is in my opinion a lot of stuff, and it is in my opinion too much. So in my opinion, are the Wild Riders the price is a bit too high overall. I would love to see a little price decreasement over here, a little, that the price drops a bit. So 1,500 credits is a little bit much. So I would love these guys for 1,300 or 1,250. The normal Wild Riders with shield there for 1,000, and the normal Wild Riders for 900 or stuff like that. Would be much more decent. But as I said, 1,500 for the Wild Hunters of Kurnes are in my opinion too much, even if the stats overall are really good. If you just look on the stats, they are worth the price, but to spend one unit 1,500 credits that is still not able to compete against high tier other cav, this is not, in my opinion, not worth the price, and in most cases there are better options to bring on the battlefield over here. So let's come to another expert area of the Wood Elves, you can say, the missile cavalry. And let's begin with the Glade Riders. The missile damage is quite similar to the missile damage of the Glade Guards. We have 23 over here. The AP missile damage is 4. We have a very good speed of 94, really good, but of course typical for kite units. Therefore the missile range is 150, so reduced regarding Glade Guards on foot, but still quite high for kite units. So 150 for a missile cavalry unit is still very good. Even the melee combat stats are not that bad. We have a weapon strength of 27, a melee defense of 24, and a melee attack of 28. This are the combat stats of a low tier infantry unit, and it's not that bad. Of course, the amount of AP damage is just 7. You can forget this completely. But emergency case, they're really able to fight or to do some rear charges and stuff like that. Even if the charge bonus is complete garbage, it's just 24. But the melee stats are, for a missile infantry unit, not bad. They are able to get deployed in a vanguard position, and they can fire whilst moving. So really perfect for a kite unit. These Glade Riders here, the price is 725 credits. This is okay. So if you need, if you have to do some harass damage, the Glade Riders are really good for that. So there are also Glade Riders with hackbang tips available. These guys causing then poison attacks, but besides from that, nothing special. The extra charge or the price overall is 800 credits. So we have 75 credits extra charge. And in my opinion, are these guys preferable, because as a very special effect, if you get chased by other cavalry units or warhounds and stuff like that, these guys will shoot on the units that's chasing you, and then the poison will reduce the speed of your opponent. So these guys are very, very difficult to catch, and I would spend always the 75 credits extra charge to deploy the Glade Riders with hackbang tips, because there's not any other disadvantage. Then we have just to spend 75 credits extra charge, 800 overall, and then you get poison attacks, but no disadvantage whatsoever. And in my opinion, it's always worth the price, because it's very difficult to catch them with the poison attacks with the speed reducement. And you can also, of course, shoot all these poison arrows on infantry units and stuff like that. This is a very good unit, and I would always pick these guys. Then we have the Hawk Riders, and the Hawk Riders were always quite useless, because the problem over here is that they have a very low model count. We have just 18. This is very bad, even if the missile damage output is quite good. We have 43. But the amount of AP missile damage is still garbage. We have 8. This is very bad. As I said, missile damage overall good, but we have just 18 models. So this is really bad. The missile range is 140. It is okay for a flying missile cavalry unit, but still, I would love to see a missile range of 180 or stuff like that. It's still not the best. But besides from that, we have a good weapon strength. So this is a very interesting fact, is that most players will pick these Hawk Riders not for the missile damage. They go in melee combat because the amount of AP damage in melee combat is superior. We have an amount of 34. Even if the melee defense is just 18, the melee attack is also not the best with 25. Of course, they have nearly no armor. The weapon strength with 45 is really good, and the amount of AP damage with 34 is really, really good. Besides from that is the speed really superior. We have a speed of 110, so from chasing other kite units and stuff, these guys are really perfect. But besides from that, nothing special. I never tested it by myself. But of course, they are meant to be to shoot from the air with their missile damage. But you can also, of course, go in melee combat and to do some rear charges. The charge bonus is 42. It's okay, not that bad. So in some cases, with some tactics, maybe it's worth it. I can't tell you this. Maybe yes, but with the missile damage, it's not worth to pick these guys, because as I said, the damage output overall is not really good because they have just 18 models. The price is 950 credits, so also not really cheap. In my opinion, also forget this with melee combat. Leave this out. This is too much money. There are better options on the roster, but yeah, this is my opinion. Last but not least, we have the Sisters of Thorn. And this is a very elite missile cavalry unit, or this is the elite missile cavalry unit of the Wood Elves. These ladies causing a tremendous amount of damage, and they have also causing poison attacks. The missile damage overall is increased by 19 regarding the normal Great Riders, so we have 42 overall. Also the melee combat stats are a bit increased, and they are quite good. In fact, we have a melee attack of 35 now, a melee defense of 33, a little bit higher weapon strength of 28. So they're also emergency cases really able to fight in melee combat. The leadership is a bit increased, therefore we have a less missile range, decreased by 60 regarding the normal Glade Riders. So we have a very short range. These ladies not shooting arrows, they have a spear in their hands, so they have really close to the target. But as I said, the missile damage output is really good, even if the only problem I have with these ladies is that the armor piercing missile damage is still not good. We have just 10. And this is, in my opinion, a disadvantage for a unit for 1200 credits to not causing that much AP damage. And this is a problem, even if the other damage is high and they're causing have good melee combat stats for a missile cavalry unit. They're causing poison attacks and all that stuff. In my opinion, the amount of AP missile damage should be higher, and this is, in my opinion, a problem. And this is one case where I never play these Sisters of Thorn. They have a physical resistance. They are also able to get deployed in a vanguard position. They can fire whilst moving. They have the Curse of Anrahai, hope I pronounce this correct over here. That will reduce the melee attack by 26, the speed by 24%, the accuracy by 60%. So a quite nice ability over here, quite unique. You can activate this only once. And we have Shield of Thorns, quite popular, quite mediocre spell, also from the Law of Life, that will increase the physical resistance by 22% and the weapon damage by 25%. So, and you get these abilities for free, and you can activate Shield of Thorns twice. But even with these abilities over here, I would say it's not worth to bring the systems. It's too much money, and as I said, the missile damage output is not the best. So let's come to the monsters, and let's begin with the Great Eagle. And a huge advantage of the Great Eagle is that he is really fast, but besides from that, he is, you can say, garbage. Price is 800 credits, and in my opinion is the biggest problem on the Great Eagle that he's not causing splash damage, or just a very low amount of that. So the damage area is very small if you're fighting in a group of enemy infantry units and stuff like that. He is, in my opinion, more designed to fight other flying units. He's very fast and very good in chasing kite units, other flying units and stuff like that, or support your lord in the air. For that, the Great Eagle is good, but just for that, and this is the problem, 800 credits just for this case is a bit much. We have overall a very good weapon strength of 390, what is really not bad, and the amount of AP damage with 156 is also okay. The melee attack with 44 is good, the melee defense with 30 is okay, not the best, and the amount of armor is also here just 30. But as I said, we have nearly no splash damage, and this is the problem. Just to fight in the air, it's in most cases not worth it. Worth to be mentioned is that the Great Eagle causing fear. So let's come to the Treekin, and I really loved Treekin. The Treekin are a really cool unit, a really steady unit, and they are designed as to fight as a rock in your front line, I would say. They have a charge defense against large foes, so they are really superior to hold the line against enemy cav or enemy monsters and stuff like that. They really struggle if they charge against these Treekin over here, because they are really steady in the front line. Overall, the weapon strength is really good with 58, very good. So the weapon strength is really, really good. The amount of AP damage is okay, not really the best. We have just 18. Also the melee attack, we have just 20, and these guys causing magical attacks, but they are more a defense unit, or they are a defense unit. You can see we have a melee defense of 54. This is huge, and that means they are really designed to make your front line more steady, to fight in the front line against other large targets, but also against other infantry units. It makes your front line so steady to defend it against rear charges, defend it against cavalry units, but also against normal infantry units, as I said. And for this purpose, the Treekin, I really love them. As I said, the weapon strength is really good with 58, but the AP damage is very low, and we have a very low melee attack, so the damage output is overall okay. Besides from that, we have a physical resistance of 20%, what is really good. They are very well armored, of course they are trees, so the amount of armor is 80. This is quite good for the Wood Elves. The Wood Elves are overall not well armored, but 80 over here is very, very good for a Wood Elf unit. The missile resistance is 15%, also quite good. They have a fire weakness, therefore we don't have to forget that. 25% over here also. They're causing fear, as I said, the charge defense, and they're immune to psychology, so they never get terrified and stuff like that. So I really love the Treekin. The price with 900 credits is, in my opinion, very decent. It's a very cost efficient unit, and I love to play them in the front line. And yeah, nothing more to say about these guys. So there's also a regiment of renown version available, the Firebog Elders. These guys have a much higher melee defense. We have 70 over here, what is huge. And we have a bit increased melee attack by 5, so we have 25 over, but it's still garbage. So the melee attack is still not good. And these guys causing flaming attacks in addition to the magical attacks, what is quite interesting. And they have a bit increased leadership. We have we have more stuff over here. They have a fire resistance of 70%, and this is quite a good fact. So if you are under fire from enemy peasant bowmen or stuff like that, these guys have a good resistance for that. So they don't have a fire weakness, they're still on fire. You can see they are burning, so they have resistance of 70%, and this is really good because they have still a physical resistance of 20%. And this combination, a physical resistance of 20%, a fire resistance of 70%, a missile resistance of 15%, and an amount of armor of 80 is really, really superior, and a melee defense of 70. So this is I love this unit over here. I think they are really underrated, in my opinion. Then they have an ability called the Wildfire Aura that will provide a flame resistance by 25% constantly around themselves. Also really interesting, because many Wood Elf units have a weakness to fire. This ability sounds good, but the impact is not that huge, but still it is for free and is constantly and is quite good. So I really love the Firebog Elders, this Treekin unit. I love the normal Treekin. That 1100 credits for the Firebog Elders are really decent, really cost efficient. I can recommend to play Treekin in the front line or Firebog Elders, especially if your opponent brings a lot of large entities. These guys are really strong, really steady, make your front line really steady and not so easy to kill. And I'm a big fan of Treekin, and especially also of course of Firebog Elders. I really think that these guys are really cost efficient. So let's come to the Tree Man over here. And the Tree Man, the price is 1,500 credits. It's a bit decreased since one of the last patches. I think in the past the price were much higher. 1,500 credits is, in my opinion, really, really good. We have a weapon strength of 430, what is really good for a monster. We have an AP damage of that of 300. Really superior weapon strength over here and AP damage. The melee attack is 45 and the melee defense 56. Really superior melee stats. The tree man causing magical attacks. The amount of armor is 100. Really good over here. And he has a charge defense against all. So I'm really a big fan of these tree men. They are so steady monsters and really fighting very well in enemy infantry ranks, but also against other large entities. So this is really a round unit, not only to fight infantry, not only to fight stuff like that. So of course you also can fight enemy lords, monsters, and they are really designed for all that stuff, and I really love them. Of course they're a large target, so your opponent can snipe the tree man out very easy with artillery and stuff, but besides from that, this is a really good monster and I love it. The physical resistance is 20%, the missile resistance is 15%, he has a fire weakness of 25%, of course a disadvantage, he causing fear and he causing terror, and he has, as I said, already set a charge defense against all. So really superior stats, no disadvantage over here. Also the price is, in my opinion, really worth the price. A cost efficient unit, and if you don't expect any too much anti-large stuff and artillery and stuff like that, or the tree man is really an advantage in every army, in my opinion. But as I said, it depends, of course. If you play against Skaven, warp lightning cannons and stuff like that, never bring a unit like a tree man. But against other units, against the vampire counts, for example, the tree man is really superior. I always played with 2 or 2 and 1 or 2 tree men. Vampire counts really struggle against that. So this is, for this cases, he's really superior, and I really love the tree man. So last but not least, let's talk about the forest dragon. He is in the same price range like the sun dragon, and if we compare the stats of the forest dragon to the stats of the sun dragon, we can see that the sun dragon has better stats. We have a better weapon strength, better melee defense and stuff, what is quite interesting, because the sun dragon is cheaper, but still the forest dragon is in the same price range. Therefore the forest dragon causing poison and magical attacks, what is in some cases can be quite useful, especially the poison attacks, of course. And we have a weapon strength of 440, the amount of AP damage is 305. So of course he is a dragon, the stats overall are really good. The amount of armor with 50 is not the best. We have a physical resistance of 20% and a missile resistance of 25%. But even though, as I already said, you get for 100 less on the high elf roster a sun dragon, and he is the better unit. So in most cases, or it's in all cases, it's preferable to bring the forest dragon in combination with a lord. As I said in the beginning, you can deploy the glade lord for 1250 credits extra charge on a forest dragon, and this is a quite decent price then. But 1800 credits just for a forest dragon alone, it's not worth it. The performance is not worth 1800 credits, even if 1800 credits is still quite decent for a dragon. You remember the star dragon, it has a price over 2000, also the moon dragon, the price is 2000 credits, so 1800 is okay, but still too much for the performance output. Rather bring them always in combination with a lord, and then this is a quite decent combination. I'm not alone on as a single unit. Always prefer the tree man if you need a big monster over here. But yeah, that's it. That was everything from the roster. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. Let me know in the comments. But let's continue now with some competitive builds. So welcome brothers to the competitive build section, and let's start over here with a all-round build, I would say. So I have some big entities in here. I have a massive infantry line. I have yeah, missile infantry, and yeah, let's take a closer look on it. In the front line, I brought the Firebug Elves. You can see these guys provide nearby allies yeah, resistance to flame, to fire damage, at least a little bit. So this is, in my opinion, quite good. They are immune to psychology and they can block all large entities, but also against other infantry units. Directly behind that, I have a front line out of Eternal Guards with shields. You can also bring the non-shielded version. It depends who against who you're going to face up. But very important is, in my opinion, always the Winter Hearts Guard. These guys are really, really superior and worth to bring to the battlefield in most matchups. And when you bring Eternal Guards, these guys should be in there. Then I have Wardens of Citral over here, Wildwood Rangers, so the legendary unit. These guys are anti-large. If you need more AP damage, you can also bring more Wildwood Rangers, but in this case I brought these Wardens of Citral. Then I brought Dryads and a lot of that, so I brought 2 groups on this side over here and 2 groups on this side over here, at least to flank a little bit, but this group in the middle can also support the front line. Then I brought 3 groups of the Glade Guards with Starfire Shaft, so a lot of AP missile damage over here if you're going to face up against a lot of monsters or also heavily armored entities. This is very good. Then last but not least, I brought Durtu with just Flock of Doom, so nothing else. And this combination is very cheap and he's a mighty monster. Yeah. So this is, in my opinion, quite good in here. As I said, it depends. If you're going to face up against our opponent, they're probably bringing a lot of anti-large stuff. These large monsters are probably not so good or a disadvantage, but it depends. I think, as I said, this is a round build, and against some factions with Vampire Counts Beastmen, this should work out quite well. So let's come to my next build, and this is a very special build, especially for the Wood Elves, or a special build from the Wood Elves, let me say it like this. So we have just Eternal Guard, and the Eternal Guard for itself are good enough. They are really a strong unit and you can mess them. I mean, give me a break, look at this. I have 4 groups without shield and 3 with shield, and I have the Winter Hearts Guard, and behind each unit there is a group of Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts. So this is a huge, massive amount of missile infantry units behind Eternal Guards, and you spread them probably very wide. And the problem, of course, is that your opponent will have some problems, because if he attack here or here, all units will shoot on him over here. If he attack here, all units will shoot on him over here. So it's a big problem for your opponent if you have spread your units that wide, especially if you have so much Eternal Glade Guards on the battlefield that always are able to shoot on your units. And the Eternal Guard is really steady, so they are really able to hold the line for some time, and meanwhile all your Glade Guards can shoot on one spot, and this is the tactic over here. And you can also move with the complete field forward or backward, and I think this is quite decent over here. Within this massive army out of Glade Guards and Eternal Guards, I brought a Glade Lord on a steed, that prey of Anrama. This is also quite good to hold tight some units. Then you can, for example, on the front line or rear charging cavalry, so you have some cavalry rear charging from the back, you can cast Prayer of Andrama on this, and then the unit is stuck over there, and then you can shoot with all your Glade Guards on this spot. So this is quite good. Then I brought the Waste Stalker, also with the Eye of Kernus and the Arrow of Kernus. Then last but not least, the Spellsinger with a lot of shadows, just with Pendulum and with Pit of Shade. So if your opponent is charging in the front line and is engaged over here, for example, with your Eternal Guards, you can constantly cast Pendulum on them or Pit of Shades, and this will cause a tremendous amount of damage. And also, of course, all these arrows from the Glade Guards meanwhile. So this is a quite mighty build in my opinion, very competitive. You can train it by yourself. This is very popular also on the ladder. So if you spread everything very wide, not too wide, so you have to be careful, but I think, for example, like this is really good. Of course, you have to be careful out of rear charges, but you have your Lord, Prey of Warhammer, as I said. You can cast Pit of Shades, you can cast Pendulum on frontline, engaged units on the front line, and meanwhile shoot on them with all these Glade cards, and I think you are really fine with that. So let's take a look on another build. This is a special build if you're facing up against a lot of units, low tier units, and in order not to get outnumbered is the best way, of course, also to bring a lot of units, especially when you're facing up against a lot of low tier units, to bring a lot of damage dealer. In this case, I brought 4 groups of Dryads in a mix with 3 groups of War Dancers. These guys slice and dice all these low tier units. Then I brought in addition 3 groups of Eternal Guard, 2 groups of the normal Eternal Guard with shields, and 1 group of Winterheart's Guard. You can also put one or the Winterheart's Guard in the backline to protect your archers. That depends. But these guys are in addition to make everything a little bit more steady and to protect at least the flanks from maybe cavalry or flankings and stuff like that. For this case, it's always good to bring Eternal Guard. Eternal Guard should be in every build, in my opinion. Every build with a infantry foundation, there should be Eternal Guard, even if you just bring 3 of them. Then I brought 2 groups of Glade Guards with Hackbang tips. So with they're causing poison attacks, as I said. Then a Glade Lord on a steed with 3 different 1 item banner of the Eternal Queen, as I said, Arrows of Kurnos, Prey of Warhammer, and last but not least the Spell Singer over here. And just with the Law of Beast, Flock of Doom, in the case if you're going to face up against a lot of units, infantry units, low tier units, stuff like that, Flock of Doom is very, very strong. In this case, this is a quite cheap combination on the steed, just with Flock of Doom. I think 500-600 credits, and this is very good. And for this case, I brought these Spell Singer over here. And last but not least, 2 groups of White Riders with shields to protect your own units, however, to do some rear charges in the front line, to chase away some kite units of your opponent. For all that stuff, especially against factions that bring a lot of units to the battlefield, Wild Riders a really good option. So this, I would say, for example, against the Skaven, this build should work out quite well. You don't have any large entities, so the War Lightning Cannons should be quite useless. And you have a huge amount of units over here, and we have Wild Riders. You can, for example, also to protect your build against chariots and stuff, because you only have 3 Eternal Guards and a very heavy field of damage dealers, unprotected damage dealers. For this case, these Wild Riders are very good. But anyway, to the next build, and if you're going to face up against, or if you need some AP damage against the heavy infantry build and stuff like that, but you're not able to bring a lot of large entities to the battlefield like 3-man, this is your build, a heavy infantry build. You can see also Eternal Guards over here, 4 groups, 2 on the front line and 2 on each side. The groups on the side protecting my 3 groups of Glade Guards with Starfire Shaft, and in the back line I have an additional group of Wardens of Citra, the Wildwood Rangers. These guys are also anti-large. They can protect the back line over here with my Glade Guards, but also can push forward and to support the front line. And one of the Eternal Guards is of course a group of Winterheart's Guard. As I said, nearly a must-have in every build in which you play Eternal Guards. The reason why I brought Eternal Guards without shield is in this case just to save money, to bring more infantry units to the battlefield. But if you're going to face up against a lot of infantry units or heavy infantry units, probably sometimes better to bring the Eternal Guards with shields. But if you're facing up against Chaos, maybe it doesn't make really a difference, because they are more designed than to fight the large entities, because against Chaos Warriors with great weapons and stuff like that, they get nearly sliced and diced with or without shield. It doesn't make any difference, so you can bring it just without shield in some cases. Then I have 4 groups of Wildwood Rangers, so heavy AP damage over here. Each group for 1000 credits. You can mass them, you can say. And as I said, one's of Citra group in the backline, so this is okay. And yeah, then I brought Orion. Orion is always good to fight against large entities, but he's also good in enemy infantry ranks. He counts as a large entity, as I said, but still it is not so easy to snipe him out with handgunners or with artillery units, because he's quite a small target on the battlefield, and this is not so easy in most cases. And then I brought a spell singer with a Law of Shadows, and this lady also here again with the Pit of Shades and the Pendulum. But that's everything. Thank you for watching this competitive build section, and let's do a summary now. So let's do a summary. In my opinion, are the Wood Elves a around faction, a really good around faction. We have a very good army core with the missile infantry, the missile cavalry, but we have also a very steady and supreme infantry core with a very good variation in there. We have good monsters, and probably are the Wood Elves the faction with the most competitive tactics available on the battlefield. So we have a lot of tactics available over here. Don't have to forget that. It's very difficult for your opponent to guess what you are going to do on the battlefield. In some cases you bring a lot of missile infantry units, a very based missile infantry unit army core, in some cases a very heavy infantry core, in some cases you bring a lot of flying units, maybe in some cases you do a lot of ambush stuff with hidden infantry or missile infantry units in the terrain. You have many possibilities over here, a lot of kite units, a lot of harass units to compete in the best way possible against your opponent, and it's very difficult for your opponent to guess what you are probably going to do on the battlefield before the match starts. And this is a very good factor over here, and this is the most important point in my opinion in competitive gaming, what makes the Wood Elves so strong. In my opinion, are the Wood Elves in the actual metagame a tier 2 faction in the lower third. So I think many other races have a quite good matchup against the Wood Elves, but here it depends very hard on the player, which tactic he is going to play, and it's not so easy to say that. But I think, in my opinion, they are clearly a tier 2 faction. They are not tier 1 faction, but even though the performance is really good and they have a huge potential on the battlefield, which depends very much on the tactic you play. In my opinion, are the Wood Elves a good faction for beginners, but also for experienced players. So this is what I say, also a point why the Wood Elves are a good around faction, because beginners can play the Wood Elves very good, because you have a very steady infantry, you have good monsters, nothing routes off very easy, you have very steady stuff over here. But also this is very good for experienced players, because You have a lot of possible tactics you can play with, a lot of kite units, with missile infantry units. You can spread your army build very wide. So you have a lot of possibilities there. So I think for beginners it is very good, because you have very steady stuff. Nothing routes very easy. Everything's quite steady. But also for experienced player, because you have a lot of possibilities for different tactics. And if you have a good amount of APM, you can do a lot of stuff with kite units and missile infantry units and all that stuff. And for this reason, I think it's for both. It's for newcomers and beginners. But anyway, thank you for tuning into this faction guide. I know, again, it's a lot of stuff, nearly 2 hours. But I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Give me a thumb up, give me a like. And the next faction guide will probably be the Bretonnia faction guide, but this will happen in 2019. So thank you for watching. Have a nice evening, and yeah, see you next time.